Hello, welcome to another wonderful edition of AAU Talks. I am your host, Nyarko in Japan, and today we are going to talk about ICT in the African universities. And then we have with us Ms. Nodumo Dhlamini, who is the ICT and Knowledge Management Director of the AAU Secretariat. Welcome, Ms. Nodumo.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. How are you? How have you been? It's been a while.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes.
So today we have an interesting topic that we are going to talk about, and I hope our viewers will have a lot of knowledge and from the discussion that we are going to have today.
Thank you.
In a layman's perspective, what do we mean by ICT?
ICT is a broad term which includes computers, includes telecommunications, management information systems, broadcasting. It's a term that came after the term information technology. It's more inclusive than information technology. So it's quite a broad term.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So what aspect of ICT can be adapted by the universities?
ICT, information and communication technology, is very key for African universities. They can use ICT to communicate. They can use ICT to set up management information systems. They can use ICT for teaching and learning. They can use ICT to collaborate with other institutions. And also ICT to market themselves as universities. So each of the business processes of a university can be integrated with ICT for better performance of that university.
Wow. So we need ICT in every section of our university?
Yeah, certainly. We cannot do without ICT. ICT is here to stay, so we might as well learn how to harness it for the good of the vision of the universities.
But what do we mean by good practices when it comes to ICT?
We mean that there are some ways of doing it, some ways of implementing ICT that can make universities reach that higher level in terms of their performances. ICT has been implemented in other countries, like in Western countries, and their experiences that have been learned there. ICT has also been implemented by some universities here in Africa, so there are some good lessons that those universities have learned that we can share as African universities so that we don't make the same mistakes that the other universities made when they were starting out.
Oh, okay. So there's a term called ICT governance. What do we mean by ICT governance?
When we talk about ICT governance, we mean where does ICT, the role of ICT fit within the institutional structures. So it's important that ICT is recognized at the highest level within the governance structure of the universities. What we've seen with most universities, we see that the role or the function of the ICT maybe reports to the bursar or the director of finance, then the director of finance then reports to the vice chancellor. That creates a problem in terms of the prioritization of ICT issues within an institution. The good practice is that the ICT director reports directly to the vice chancellor. Yes, for quick decisions to be made concerning ICT.
So you mentioned the ICT director. What are some of the functions of the ICT director or the directorate itself?
The ICT Directorate is in charge of the ICT infrastructure. They are also in charge of the management information systems that are used by the university. They are also in charge of the communications. They are in charge of supporting the teaching and learning and research processes by harnessing ICT to make that possible. If a university is an online university or is a distance education university, the need for ICT becomes much, much clearer.
Oh, okay.
Because if students are learning using technology, the Directorate of ICT is responsible for making sure that students can actually learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand ICT has a very huge cost, and we would like to talk about a bit of the funding of ICT projects in our various universities, because most of these universities don't have the financial muscles to fund ICT projects. So how do
ICT is expensive, and most universities shy away from it because they don't just have the budget. But the good practices that we've seen over the years is that there must be a budget for ICT within the university budget. We see universities budgeting for water bills, budgeting for electricity, but they don't budget for ICT. You find ICT is funded from donor funds, and when those funds finish, then the ICT projects fail.
Oh, okay.
So it's very important that the university has its own resources.
Okay. So let's look at a hypothetical issue whereby we have funding for ICT. How can the Directorate champion ICT in various universities?
I think the Directorate of ICT needs to be a broker or a good advocate, a champion who is able to talk to the academic faculty and get them on board, who is able to talk to the leadership and convince them what needs to be done in terms of ICT. It's important that ICT directors don't sit in their corner and then are viewed as just technical people. But they must be part of the system, they must be part of the solutions, they must be able to be listened to by the stakeholders within the university, because they are there to help the university achieve its core business or its mission. They are not there just for the technology agenda, but they are there for the purpose of teaching, learning, and research.
Okay. Okay, can you tell us a bit about cloud hosting and then in-house hosting?
There's a growth in terms of cloud hosting. It is now agreed that it's more prudent to put things on the cloud rather than to invest in setting up your own data centers. And in Africa, we need to consider cloud hosting because most of the time we have challenges with our power, with our electricity and internet. But if things are on the cloud, where it's guaranteed that the systems will be up 99%, let's put them on the cloud. I know people have issues with the security and everything, but they are private clouds. Clouds are not all like the public clouds. You can make an arrangement with your host in terms of what type of a cloud you want, whether you want to share with others on the same server, whether you want a dedicated server, etc. So it's important that for the availability of our systems and high responsiveness, we must consider putting things on the cloud.
Okay. So what if an institution decides to have an in-house cloud? What are the best practices?
An institution can have an in-house cloud, but an institution must make sure that it has power backup, so that when the power fails or power goes off, there's a backup system that quickly kicks in, so that if you are running an e-learning system, students don't complain about its reliability, or staff don't complain about the unreliability of your email because there has been a break in the service. So it's possible to have an in-house cloud, but you need to set up the same infrastructure that will allow you to say my systems are available 99% of the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So my next question is, can African universities come together to build a system or an in-house system for themselves within their universities?
Yes, they could. What we see universities doing, sometimes universities build systems in-house, which is very good. Sometimes they buy systems off the shelf. So those are the two options. But the two options depend on the situation of that university.
Yes.
If a university has the adequate staff to develop and maintain, and it can retain the staff, then it can go for the option of building a system from scratch. But if a university knows that its capacity to build internally is limited, then you can buy off the shelf. But then it means you pay the owner of the system if this is not a free open source system. But there are options also for free open source systems which you can customize and use.
Oh, okay. So what is the Directorate, what's the Secretariat of AAU doing, since most of the universities are under AAU and then the supervision of AAU? So what is AAU doing when it comes to hosting other universities or hosting a system like a cloud for these universities?
We are beginning to collaborate with the ICT private sector to be able to respond to some of the challenges that our member universities are facing. We are hoping that the demand will come from the universities. Let's say they want to lobby to buy a particular system, we can organize ourselves and come together to negotiate, maybe for better pricing, because we are approaching the system supplier as a group. So we are open to the universities to work with us wherever they feel the power of the network can assist them to get better discounts or better deals when working with the private sector.
That's nice. In your submission, you mentioned that the ICT can be used for marketing and branding and all that. So can you tell us a bit of email addresses used by universities and then also how they can brand themselves to reach the larger public?
We have noticed that, for example, with the network, most of the universities use private emails for their key officers, for their vice chancellors, registrars, etc. You'll see a registrar who is using a private email. We are calling on universities to please officialize those emails. Even if it's a Gmail or it's a Yahoo, can it be set up as at vice chancellor such university at gmail.com or Yahoo or Hotmail? The reason is because it becomes very difficult when those people leave offices for us to keep in touch with that institution. And we would even go further and say it's preferable that universities use institutional emails for purposes of branding the institution. But when you look at it, the reason why they don't is possibly because the email systems are not reliable. So it goes back now to how do you ensure that your systems are reliable? If the power is not reliable in your campus, maybe put your systems on the cloud so that people will trust them. So it's important that when a high-level officer in a university takes out his business card, the business card must be showing an institutional email.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
For self-branding.
Self-branding.
Or branding the institution. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Madam, you talked about the fact that sometimes, let's say VCs leave office and then their email will become vacant and all that. How can having an email, institutional email, solve these problems? Because you mentioned the fact that they have their personal emails, and in my understanding, when you have an institutional email, it's still personalized for you. So maybe Samuel Japan, I can have SA Japan, it's still branded for me. So how can having an institutional email solve the issue of missing information when you leave office?
The challenge is that an email, for example, samuel@aau.org,
yes,
the day you leave AAU would give you a grace period, maybe 3 months. After 3 months, we close the email. When another person comes in your role, we need to open a new email for that person. But if we set up emails based on offices, like the office of the Vice Chancellor has an email, vice-chancellor at maybe aau.org. Even if that individual leaves the office, the email will still be valid. So there's a continuity beyond specific individuals.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in this advocacy that we are doing about ICT in our various universities, is there a training program that has been set aside for training people to become knowledgeable when it comes to handling ICT issues?
We do quite diverse trainings. We do training in network management and monitoring. We do training in cyber security. We also have other trainings that have been planned, which will be rolling out to the member universities. But we would begin by finding out what their needs are. We don't want to just do trainings without really understanding what their needs are and what their capacity gaps are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So can you kindly brief us on the current trainings that you have at AAU when it comes to ICT?
We do the cyber security training, social media training for communications officers, network management and monitoring. So far, these are the 3 that we have been doing. As I explained, we are going to implement a survey on our member universities so that we prioritize the other trainings that they need.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's come to cyber security. You mentioned that earlier on. There have been issues when other universities, especially in Ghana, it was reported some few time ago that University of Cape Coast had their website hacked. And what are some of the best practices that you can do to protect website? Because I think it contains a lot of information that doesn't need to go out there, or if someone hacks. Yes.
I think many universities in the continent have faced that problem. So one of the things that must be done is to ensure that there's capacity to manage a university website in terms of the security aspect. There must be qualified people who are regularly trained, who understand the threats that come out every day, so that they are able to respond. But what we find in most universities, there's no cyber security expert, and this is an emerging area which requires constant research to understand the threats that the university systems are facing. And then, of course, it's important that there's the security structure in terms of the authentication and the implementation of the right certificates to
Yes.
secure them are implemented. So it's largely a capacity issue. It's also a resource issue in some instances. Websites are built, then they are left there. There's no budget to ensure that the website is properly supported. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So the good practice is really ensuring the people responsible for the websites and systems are trained, adequately trained, they are kept up to date, and that there's a budget for the needs. Yeah.
Okay. So let's take this issue whereby we have the qualified people, but yet still our university website got hacked. What are some of the steps that we can use to prevent issues like that from happening?
I think it wouldn't happen if they are qualified people. Qualified people who are kept up to date, it shouldn't happen. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I wanted to understand the science behind the whole thing. Yes.
The science behind the
protecting
hacking
of a website from hackers.
It's important that all the protocols, all the certificates, all the security procedures that are supposed to be put in place, they are put in place. They are updated when they need to be updated, because there are quite a number of updates that are run to whenever one has a website. And most of the time, because websites are hosted on the cloud, the role of keeping the sites secure relies mostly with the hosting company. But then if you are hosting your website internally, you now need to do all that work. Make sure you are up to date in terms of the security patches, because they come out every day. But if you take over a week or a month to update the security patches, then your website will be hacked.
No, please, what is the difference between the HPPS and then the HPP? Is the HPPT? Yes.
It's really that now websites must all have HTTPS, in terms of the URL, because it's more secure. HTTP is less secure than HTTPS. So it's about the security certificates and the security patches, and more secure websites begin with that URL.
Yes. So I would like to say thank you, and then we want your final comment and sometimes maybe recommendations that you give to our viewers, especially the institutional heads who are watching us now.
I think it's important that we share as universities to understand how other universities are addressing certain challenges that we are facing. ICT has been here for some time now. We have all tried to implement it, but it's important to share lessons and understand if you have a problem as an ICT director, is there another university that has faced this problem, and how have they resolved it? And it's important that we make sure that ICT is
topmost priority.
Is the topmost priority of the institution, in terms of the governance, in terms of budget, and also in terms of the training, the people that are actually leading the implementation of the ICT. They must not be viewed like just technical people, but they must be part and parcel of the university's strategy for improving teaching and learning. So they must be fully engaged, and they must also reach out to the faculties and the academic departments, and not stay in their corners as just ICT people.
All right, thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Sam.
All right. Clearly, viewers, we have come to understand that ICT is very relevant when it comes to higher education in Africa. when we look at cybersecurity, how to protect our website and data on the system, and also how to brand ourselves to get more marketing, or how to make people know about our researchers. So it is prudent that institutional heads share ideas and also come together to form a system whereby they can improve on higher education in Africa. Thank you for watching. This is AAU Talks. See you later. Bye.